the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner. Welcome to another podcast from High Ash Farm at Caister St Edmund. And I've knocked on Chris's door, and Chris came to the door, answered it himself, and we're now sitting in his living room. Chris, great to see you.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. And it's hugely great to be back, not just for me, but for the demented rat that we often talk about, because I was in Papworth Royal Hospital in Cambridge for 9 days. But for Rat, it's 56 days.
He was missing his master.
Not much. And I've been kissed a lot in my life, but nothing like when I came back to the farm. It was so funny. So, this is not going to be a sort of holiday movie snap show, but I'm going to start the podcast off with what happened at Papworth, because it's quite extraordinary. And some of it's really funny and amusing. So stick with us for the first 4 or 5 minutes if you can. And then towards the end, fingers crossed, we'll carry on with our normal Countryside podcast. That's if we can. I worked the Friday the 13th, Saturday the 14th, Sunday the 15th. The operation was planned on the 16th, which is the Monday of March, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it should have been 3 to 4 hours, all nice and straightforwards. But just before you have the operation, you go through a series of tests. There's a total of 7. It's done at Papworth, up to a week ahead of the planned operation. And the very last test was something called an ECG, which technically speaking is an electrocardiogram, where they sort of take pictures of your heart. And there's a very mature doctor there, and I hadn't had this done to me since I was probably a child. Round her neck was the most strangest piece of kit you've ever seen, a stethoscope, completely out of fashion. Anyway, she looked at the electrocardiograph, and then she got the stethoscope out and put it on my chest, dotted it about a few places, and then stood still and listened. And she said, "I'm hearing something that didn't show up on your original cardiograph in December, and it concerns me. So have you got time to have a new scan?" And I was about to miss the train, actually. So I said, "Oh, can we do it Monday?" And then she arranged an emergency scan on the Monday morning. And my 4-hour planned operation turned into 9.5 hours. So I had a triple bypass planned. No, it was a quadruple bypass. And my heart is so powerful, apparently it's like a bull's. we won't talk about that. One of the team came to see me after the operation, and my heart's so strong, because I've only ever done physical work, that it had been trying to circulate the blood around the arteries, and of course it couldn't, because I was full of blockages. And so it had kind of blown itself. And that's what she heard on that stethoscope. I'll get it right in a minute. So I have a huge thank you to her. But the team there at Papworth is beyond belief. And it's a fairly newish hospital. I was referred there, no special favours whatsoever, because I was called asymptomatic. I was quite ill without knowing it, but I was showing no symptoms at all. So they got on with it before I had a heart attack. So they didn't know whether I'd get there and be alive. They didn't know whether I'd survive the operation or how long I'll have after it. I did ask the consultant surgeon who's going to do the op, how bad is it? He said, "Bad. You're a walking heart attack, if you're lucky, or a stroke." And then, being a farmer, you ask practical questions. The first one was, "What's your success rate?" "It's 1% failure," he said. So I said, "What happens if I don't wake up?" And these very dark eyes looked through to the back of my head, and he said, "You won't know." And of course, he's quite right. You wouldn't have known because you're under anaesthesia and you're zonked out. Anyway, they got on with it. And just before the operation starts, they check everything. When you go into the hospital, you have a wristband put in with your hospital number and your name and a little part of your address on. And above the surgical table is your name. And somebody looked up from the team of 21. There's 5 theatres on the go there, 21 in mine, and said, "Is that the Chris Skinner?"
So a listener to the podcast.
Yeah, in the surgery, in the theatre, and there was 3 of them. Absolutely amazing. And so they asked permission if they could play the podcast while they were doing the operation, and thank goodness it wasn't granted. He said, "No, it's too distracting. Let's start this procedure," and carried on with it. So
it would have been a bit bizarre, wouldn't it? Your own voice being
yes.
carried through the ether as the operation happened.
Yes, I know. So that's one of the... I did say some of it's quite funny. So I said, "What's my survival rate?" And he said, in other words, how long have I got? He said, "It can be a day, a week, a month." He said, "I'm hoping for at least 10 years for you. That would be a good result, and carry on working once you're fit again, as you did beforehand, and that is what saved my life, that I'm quite fit, physically fit." So I was taken round by the physiotherapist, and she took me straight back to the room. She said, "You don't need any physiotherapy." But right through the hospital, all I could hear when I'm in my bed, in my little room, is laughter, and all the teams getting on well, and all the way through. So once you're discharged from the theatre, you go into recovery intensive care for about a day, and then you're moved onto a ward. And when you're on the ward, you have a nurse looking after several beds and several healthcare social workers just underneath the nurse doing all the menial stuff. And I thought, I'm going to be a good patient, and I'm going to take an interest in the people and just find out what they do. And I was absolutely shocked. The first gentleman I spoke to was from the Philippines. He's a farmer's son. 2 hectares, which many farmers in Norfolk will laugh at. That's 5 acres. And he was hoping to grow sunflowers on the plot and then undersow it with maize. And I said, "How are you ploughing it?" And he said, "We pull the plough by hand. It's called a riffle. And you make little grooves in. We drop the seed in by hand. And I'm here in the UK. I got a job at Royal Papworth earning money to buy the seed for my parents to carry on with the holding." So I just had to be quiet after that, because his English was actually really good. And the second one was, it happened about a day later. Of course, I got quite interested at this point. Another farmer's son was there looking after me. Exactly the same situation, but he was from South Sudan, which is now independent. And he showed me, he's got his camera out, and quite proudly showed me this sort of gazelles on his holding. Occasionally they have elephant on there, they wander, but they don't shoot them. They get wildlife rescue in, and they'll come and shift them off the land. And he has, this will make people in Norfolk smart, he's got 3 square miles, which is just about 2,000 acres. And he's working in the UK to earn enough money to buy here a John Deere tractor and have it dismantled and export it back to his farm in South Sudan, where his parents are working. So he's saving up the money, and he wants about a 15-year-old John Deere tractor before they got too technical, because they can get repaired over there. And I started to learn that the world is a very different place, and then my thoughts turned to kind of tradition and their world, and our world here and how ours has changed so hugely from when I started farming in the early 1940s. My father, this is, and me in the 1970s. And if you go back perhaps a couple of hundred years, 1820, there were 12 million people in the UK. Today, there's getting on for 70 million of us. And those 12 million, most of them lived, like me, out in the countryside. Most people today, no association with food, live in towns and cities. So I had to think about culture and tradition, which these two young farmers is so important for them to come to the UK. To earn it, I know they don't get paid much, but to them it's a lot of money, enough to buy a tractor, and that sets you on the road. So they were looking to the future, both of them. By the way, the sunflowers from the Filipino farm were going to be harvested by hand, and all the sunflower heads loaded on a lorry by hand and then go to a crushing mill, and the income from it is the oil from the sunflowers.
Well, you grow sunflowers every summer, but that's for the birds to eat off the plant, isn't
Correct. And so I had to start to think about tradition, and have we left all that tradition behind? And the first thing I thought of was most evenings, well, every evening, I take Rat for a late evening walk. Sometimes 10, sometimes 11 o'clock, because High Ash Farm, we're on a very high spot here, and I can see right down into West Norfolk, particularly South Norfolk. I can see 20 miles. And then I see something which, as a farmer, I've kind of accepted as a normal practice to happen. From about mid-July, when the first combines go out in the field, the skyline is illuminated with lights, but it's often damp by then, and the combines have actually finished harvesting. But I know what those lights are, and it's a process called lamping, shooting foxes, hares, and things like that at night. And then I compared what happens here, and it's quite kind of normal, to what's happening in these two countries, where they're actually looking after their wildlife as an asset and protecting it, because they're trying to do both things together, and I appreciate that. And so I suddenly realise that the things I do and treat as normal isn't actually normal, because we're trying to look after the wildlife and the countryside, lots of stewardship schemes, and none of it has been particularly effective, because 2024, Norfolk, my home county, came out top for wildlife persecution, illegal wildlife persecution. And because what the surgeon and the team had said to me, that I've been given a second chance, if you like, one of the team actually said to me, you're a force for nature, so make the most of it. And that sort of almost made me cry. I don't regard it like that. I just love sharing the countryside with everybody. And that's what I hope to carry on doing. So I've been given a gift. And somebody else said, it did make me smile, that I'm now a voice from beyond the grave. So...
One of the most delightful and evocative sounds of the English countryside, Chris, the song thrush.
Yes, it's one of the success stories here at the farm. We've got quite a number of them nesting here, and it's one of the UK's most competent songsters singing away for us.
Just one of the sounds that you can hear regularly on this podcast.
And we've got a little favour to ask. If you can possibly help by sending us a donation to help support the running costs of the podcast by visiting highashfarm.com/podcast.
And thank you for all your donations. Well, I mean, they said you had a 99% chance, and
Yes.
here you are.
Yes, exactly. So,
But without any action, then it wouldn't have been such a good prognosis.
No, that's the whole thing. I don't think I'd have even, much longer, I wouldn't have made it to hospital, which I didn't realise because I worked over the weekend for the operation. but not normally.
Well, when I last saw you, you were jumping over streams.
I was working like a lunatic without knowing. I thought I'd got a demented dog, but you're sitting next to a demented farmer here as well. So I have learnt so much, and it's turned around what I see. And I think it's about a year ago, I'd come down the Ipswich Road and turned off where Dunstan Hall is. It's only about a mile south of Norwich to come down Dunstan Lane. And I saw some lamping on Norfolk Archaeological Trust's site there, Norfolk, the sort of Roman town itself, and somebody was shooting out there on there. And I reported it to the trust the next morning and got a thank you for that, but said, no, we've given permission for vermin control and rabbit and hare control on the field. And because my vehicle was seen when I'd stopped and I was actually checking what I was seeing, the lights went on the side of the truck. And the next morning, when I had to go to Norwich to one of the agricultural supply stations, there's a large roadside triangular sign with a lady riding a horse on it to say, you're going into Dunstan, there are horses here, please take care. Just above the lady's head, is still there, is a very large bullet hole. And it's that kind of intransigence, that other people think they own the countryside and the wildlife in it and can do what they want when they want with it. And that's one of the reasons why all the stewardship schemes haven't delivered perhaps the opportunity they did offer to start with. So there we are. This sounds like some sort of pre-planned speech. It's absolutely not.
But you're so optimistic, aren't you? Normally, and it's a gloomy picture that maybe all that effort has gone to waste. But without it, maybe things would be even worse.
Yes. So it's made us all stop and think. And because we're now one of the most nature depleted countries in Europe. And it just, it makes you reflect on how things were. Right back in my childhood, there were grey partridge shoots here at the farm. I'm not going to criticise hunting or anything. The farm was laid out for shooting in the early to mid 1800s. 13 areas of woodland on a Norfolk farm. I mean, that is unusual to say the least. So without those changes, you're completely right. And it was necessary to now. I listen. I get up early in the morning, and I'm still getting up early in the morning. Turned on the farming programme this morning, and there was one of the first good pieces of news I've had coming out of about 5 to 6 in the morning, that the fox hunting bill is going to be reviewed today, or it was announced today, but it's going to be reviewed to see if the trail hunting will be stopped because it's used as a smokescreen, perhaps. So what I would now love to happen is people who have power, people who have influence about what happens in the countryside can all get together and come up with a new format of care for our native wildlife. It doesn't just belong to people whose land it's on. Although game birds, you own the birds that are on your land, they can fly off onto somebody else's. Then there's somebody else's birds or mammals, and it works like that. But things like brown hares, for instance, there's a huge discrepancy in the law on them. They do have a closed season at this time of the year when they're breeding, but you can still shoot them because they become vermin at that point. The only thing you can't do is offer them for sale. But the rest of the season, you can have hare shoots, and of course, they're declined hugely. And it's all those little things together. The year before last, I did a survey from here in Wild Bird Seed Mix of just letting off a loud bang once a week on a 5-acre plot of Wild Bird Seed Mix, just to see what the effect was on the bird population. It was only done on a Saturday, just a couple of quick bangs with bird scaring bangers, and it was down 70%, and that's another loophole that.
So you did that to replicate the effects of a shoot?
Yes, because it's legal. There's a loophole in the law that you can actually be paid by stewardship to plant overwinter wild bird seed mix, but you can also shoot through it. Doesn't, obviously, there's all these small things, and of course we're trying to address the problems of wildlife loss and how you can do it. And there's probably, if we really knew about it, isn't one particular reason why there's a huge decline like that. It's a combination of all of them. And I'm one of the early ones. You know, talking about tradition, I used to burn all the straw hair. I do all my baling with a box of Swan Vestas matches. Other matches are available. And you know, you treat it as though, these huge pyres going up in, all the local ladies in the village would not be very pleased because there'd be black smuts over the linen and their underwear and everything. And you'd burn the whole lot, and it was a really good clean start for the next crop. And then we realised it wasn't right either for the environment, global warming and things like that, to do things like that. So we can change, and we have done, but the law made us do that. And things like red list species, we've often talked about grey partridge, one of my favourite birds on farmland. It's a farmland bird, moorland sometimes. And then woodcock have now become a red list species. But that means they're in danger, they're in peril, and they need our help. Wildlife belongs to everybody at the end of the day. And so there we are. I hope everybody hasn't gone to sleep after this.
It sounds like you're rededicating yourself after the operation, and you're back home.
Yes.
And in fact, you've only been back home for about 3 days.
Yes,
now,
that's right. I don't know how I'm still standing. But
so how are you feeling now then?
Shaky on the knees and legs, but the rest of me's very good. There's not a white bit on me. I've got every colour on my body apart from green, thank goodness. It's unbelievable. I'm bruised from head to foot, and more blood samples than you can possibly imagine. I put Tony Hancock, so that's an armful of blood, to shame, a programme from many decades ago now. And but I just have been given a voice. And when you go into hospital, you fill in quite a long book, and it's called All About Me. And at the end of the book, I said I'd just like the opportunity to carry on doing the Countryside podcast as my thank you, so that I can share what I see, what I have here at the farm now with the world. And that has really excited me. So I've got an urge to carry on if my body allows me to. But 20 years ago, yesterday, I put a very large owl box up. My daughter moved into a house at Saxleyham, just a few miles further south of High Ash Farm. And in the garden was a huge dog kennel, which she didn't want. The previous owner's dog had died, and it had been buried in the garden. But Kate, my daughter, donated the dog kennel to me, and it very rapidly has become an owl box. And if I have enough energy to walk down the farmyard with you in a minute, I did promise we'd try and carry on the normal Countryside podcast before we lose all our listeners.
Well, that's not going to happen, I'm sure. And so we'll walk down there shortly.
Yeah, we'll walk down, and we'll visit the barn owl box. It's been occupied 4 times over that 20 years, and this will be the 5th time there's been a family of owls using it, and I'll explain what we're seeing. And hopefully when we come back, or once we get to the owl box, if I make it, no road driving, I'm not allowed to do that, but I have a low gear on the pickup truck, and we'll crawl up there to the further side of the farm and see if we will be able to see the box and how I know it's occupied. So there we are. We'll return to normal now, everybody, I promise. So,
well, we got 100 emails or so in the last week, Chris.
Yes.
So a lot of people were rooting for you, and they'll be delighted to hear you back on. So yes, we'll get out and about, shall we? At your pace.
Yes, at my pace. Slightly slower than normal. One thing I promise you, no ditch jumping today.
And Rat's coming?
He's coming, of course.
Out we go.
Off we go.
And Rat's got his toy alligator, or whatever that is. I think it's a little toy fox.
Yeah, she's had enough of that.
We're in the van there, and Chris is driving us to the other part of the farm now, and well, it's a lovely sight to see some hares there on the newly mown field.
Yes, it's over winter wild bird mix. We're coming just towards the end of what we call the Hungry Gap. It's April in the week ahead, and the days are getting longer, and we saw some deer on this field. We're going past Barnfield at the moment. There you are, Matthew.
The hare right in the middle there.
Oh, look,
lying down.
Two hares beside us, and a hare over there, and then in front of us, 2 deer. 3 deer. 3. What on earth is that on the other side? Yes, 3 deer. There. Can you see the 2 hares?
Yeah,
squatted
they're
down?
sitting down.
They're face to face.
I think the deer have spotted us. You can see the ears pointed up.
No, we haven't been in the truck a minute, and that's what I mean by kind of biodiversity, and they're safe here, and that's why they're here. They have food, the hare that's here, and it's just, if you're walking along the permissive walks on High Ash Farm, it's such a treat to suddenly have your eye caught by those beautiful mammals, and it's absolutely incredible. So I nearly said I'd just like to puff my chest out, but I'm not doing chest jokes today.
Don't do too much puffing.
Yes. So anyway, we've got a short way to go, and then we'll hopefully visit the barn owl box, and no road work whatsoever. Yes, they're stunning. So you can see there's not one level field on High Ash Farm, and it's just a series of corrugated tin roof with all the corrugation, so the glaciers left it.
Pheasant?
Yes, got pheasant in front of us, another one on the other side of the field, and you notice that the ladies aren't here today. They're all busy laying. Another deer squatted down in the cover near the top of the hill. Some rooks just flying off the cover there. Wood pigeon flying past us with the white wing bars.
You've had me close to a pheasant nest before, haven't you?
Yes.
And we got very close, and it was sort of in the base of a hedge, I think.
Yes, the eggs are brown. It almost looks like the female pheasant, called the hen, is like a different species to the cock, because the cock is, very sort of flamboyant is the word.
I think Rat's toy that we were talking about earlier, I think that's a pheasant,
I'm not sure what that is or where it's come from.
Rat has acquired.
He's acquired something.
Toy.
Another hare on the horizon, just at the top of the hill. Beautiful. And this is going to be a new wildflower field, established about 8 or 9 years ago, and we've sprayed off the bottom bit of it. Got too much grass in, and grass competes with the more delicate wildflowers. Going past the lake, small or large pond there where we visited the frogs and toads last week's podcast, which we pre-recorded. And the first blackthorn just coming out in flower on our left. Nice early source of nectar for bees and some of the hoverfly species that come out early in the year. And Rat is really pleased with this arrangement. He's sitting on my lap, not making a sound, which is unusual compared to the last few days. So he's start barking and wagging his tail.
Well, while we're travelling, I can say that I've got this huge sheath of emails here, and there's been quite a bit of support for Rat, because someone said that it put them off the podcast, or it said it was distracting, that sometimes Rat will disturb the wildlife by barking, but I've got people here who say that actually they think Rat is an integral part of the whole thing.
Well, I always thought it was a team of 3, but now I've realised it's become a team of 4, and Rat has to be included because he's got more praise and enjoyment and laughter than many of the items that we cover.
Well, Pat sent an email saying best wishes to you, Chris, and I must write to tell you that I was furious about the listener who complained about Dear Rat. Well, everyone can complain, and that's absolutely fine, isn't it?
Yes.
But she said, he is loved by all of us regular listeners. And here's another one from Chris in Yorkshire. Oh my gosh, do not do anything about Rat and his contribution.
Well, we were honest enough to sort of read the good, positive emails we have about the Countryside podcast. So each week, we don't edit anything, and as long as there's enough time to read the emails that come along to us, I'm always happy to do that. But this time, somebody who did criticise him was a little bit outvoted. I think if all the emails came in to say, right, he shouldn't be on the Countryside podcast, then he'd just have to stay at home and sulk for a short while we're out and about. But at the moment, he's looking extremely happy with this tour of the farm, and I haven't been up here for getting on for 10 days. So the funny thing, when I came back, the farm is still here.
We're out of the car now, and Rat's gone scuttling off, but looking up, and there's your dog kennel.
Yes, my daughter's dog kennel 20 years ago. So I was here with the tractor, 56-year-old man, would you believe, full of life, just as I am now. And I was putting a dog kennel up in a tree. Now, only crazy farmers can be accused of doing that. And within the year, the early part of the following year, it was occupied by a fabulous pair of barn owls. Beautiful, beautiful owls. So how do I know it's occupied? Because outside the box, and it's large, it's sort of 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide and nearly 5 feet in length. So quite a weight, and I couldn't find any trees to get it in apart from this one. And unfortunately, it ended up right next to a little owl box. And the funny thing is, the little owl box is occupied as well.
So they coexist?
They can do. It's unusual. That's only about 4 feet away. But you know it's occupied because little owls, Britain's smallest, introduced, but it was a native here before the last ice age. Little owls are quite terrestrial. They spend a lot of time on the ground scooping up beetles. Their pellets are black and shiny with all the beetle wing cases, and you can see all around the bottom of the entrance hole there's some mud there because it's been slightly wet, and they've been coming back with muddy feet, presumably the females incubating, and they nest quite early. The barn owls start nesting now. Once we're into April, there'll be a female in there and should probably be nesting. Females are larger than the male, and they're Britain's whitest owl, apart from quite a rare owl species which is sometimes seen in the UK called a snowy owl, and you'll see them much more in the northern part of the country. Sometimes you get them off course in coastal areas around the eastern side of the UK, but it's so rare, so basically no camouflage. So unlike the tawny owl, which is slightly bigger than the barn owl, tawny owls are brown and they'll hunker down in some ivy by a tree and hope they don't get seen, because they get mobbed a lot by other wildlife if they get seen, whereas the barn owl has to go in a tree hole or something like that in daylight hours because they're so conspicuous. The female's slightly grey speckled underneath and slightly darker on the back than the male, but they seem much bigger because of the large face. The head is actually quite small. The ears, unlike mine are quite symmetrical. The ears are slightly asymmetrical, so one ear underneath those feathers is slightly higher than the other. Excellent night vision, but they can hunt in the day as well. So lay 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eggs sometimes, but usually at 2 to 3 day intervals. But after the first egg, often the female starts incubating straight away. So you've got this sort of tiered hatching that happens, which is amazing. So
will there be a bird in there now?
Absolutely.
Because you can see the whitewash beneath,
okay,
can't
so
you?
yeah, exactly that. Underneath, it looks like I've had a water bucket filled with whitewash and poured it over the side of the tree. I promise I haven't. I was aware that they were using the box, and when I'm going to go up a ladder again in a few weeks' time, I'll secrete a camera over the top of the landing board there, And so we have some footage. But I've already got a picture from the first year that the box was used. And when I get back to the farm office, I'll go on one knee and ask Daniel if he can retrieve that picture and get it onto this Sunday's podcast, on the High Ash Farm Facebook page. So that's quite exciting because they're scheduled birds, protected. And it's just thrilling to have them there. It's all part of that tapestry of wildlife. So you have your prey, your predators, and it all works together like magic. So,
and you've recorded the sound of a barn owl.
Yes, I have. From that first year, it's quite a while ago now, so it's actually 19 years ago it was first occupied. Put the box up 20 years ago this week, and it took several evenings to come, put my trusty tape-to-tape recorder underneath the owl box and put that in a cover so the barn owls couldn't hear it because it was battery operated with the spools running around. And after about the third night, I think it was about just after midnight, the male came back obviously with some food. The female replied inside the box, much quieter. They're also called screech owls. You'll often find them in old church towers, hollow trees. Years ago when we had clay block barns on the farm, the apex, the sort of where the tiles are, right at the top, there'd be a hole left in there for owls to go in because you often stored corn in the old barns as well. And so you encouraged the owls to go in the barns, and eventually they all fell down. And this is a way of sort of compensating for all the loss of habitat that they've had, which is why you don't see them. And of course something else has happened now. When we went back at the beginning of the podcast and talked about 200 years ago, there were no cars about then. And of course many barn owls fly low over the road. They're expert flyers, and they often get hit by fast traffic, and that's another one of the many as that's really special to have them. So it's as good habitat here. There's not a fast road quite anywhere near us at the moment, and so there's a nice habitat for them. They love this territory behind us, which is rough grassland. It's absolutely full of small mammals, and that's the main part of their diet, is field voles, shrews, long-tailed field mice, small rats. They'll take those as well. But the stream beside us, so I come down here odd times of day and night.
It's looking nice and full.
It is. It's running through, and recently there's been frogs and toads in there, and I kept seeing what I thought was a cattle egret going into the stream and disappearing, and it was actually the next day. I hadn't been drinking beforehand. It was a barn owl going into the water and bringing out frogs. So I've learnt by just watching what wildlife does, and I'm being taught something all the time, and that's why I sound cheerful. I'm happy to share this. I won't reveal the exact location because somebody tries to get pictures perhaps and will sit under the box waiting for the owl to come back, and of course they won't. So all sorts of strange things can happen, but so we won't go right up to the box, but there's probably the females in there, and the box opens at the other end as well, so she can have her husband if she wants sitting at the other end.
So it's a double aspect, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
but
wonderful.
It's colossal. I can get inside that. Yes, we could nearly both get inside
I wouldn't advise it necessarily, but it's a des res for the owl.
Absolutely. So it's been there 20 years, properly made, good roof on it, and fantastic. And a big entrance as well. It's 8 inches tall and 8 inches wide, so extra large, and a landing board, and also that for the young owlets to come out and just stretch their wings when they're ready to go. So there we are, a quick visit. If the podcast's a little bit shorter, I apologise, but I'm still standing, and we'll get back to the truck, and I think there's a few questions to answer.
Got the trusty tailgate open on the pickup here. We're back to normal now with all the emails that you've sent us. Stuart and Joe Thompson. Hope all goes well with your procedure, Chris. We live at Great Shelford. It's only 10 minutes from Papworth. If you're in a room at the front of the hospital and at a high enough elevation, maybe you can see 9 wells. Just over a hectare. It's an island of chalk springs, nestling in mixed woodland and surrounded by fields and the ever-encroaching hospital site. Important in the early 17th century, it fed Cambridge fresh water via Hobson's conduit, and Hobson, of the later famed Hobson's Choice, was named for it. So for any detail, look at the internet, but thanks for everything you do, Chris, they say.
Oh, thank you. Look at that. Yes, fantastic. And that's exactly where I was. I was on level 5 at the top of the hospital. I knew this would happen, so he was going to ask to get on the back of the truck. There he is. Behave, dog.
Lots of love coming from Sally, wishing you a speedy recovery, and she sent a photograph with there's Sally with the two of us.
Yes.
In the summer, by the looks of things, judging by your shirt.
But judging by the colour of my face, you mean? Yes, this scarlet.
Here's another one from Vivian. Hi Chris, so wonderful to hear your podcast today with the wonderful news of your successful operation at Addenbrooke's. Taking everything in your stride, you are a star, and carrying on with the Good News podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's much appreciated.
Carolyn Skipper in Catfield, which is not far from here, in the county of Norfolk. Great to hear you're recovering from your bypass. You're normally against bypasses, aren't you?
I certainly am. 3's enough, but 4's pushing it, which is what happened.
She says, hope you're not in too much pain and being well looked after.
Yes.
And thanks for today's podcast. Well, we sort of recorded it beforehand, didn't we?
Yes.
And there's a picture of, looks like a heron that's been sent in by Janice. Janice says, glad to hear your op was a success. Being away must have been hard. In the meantime, we live on the edge of Barnes Common. That's in London, isn't it? Yesterday I stayed at the pond near the entrance to watch as a heron seemed to be lining up for a catch, snaking his neck and moving very slowly. We didn't expect to see him catch such a large fish, and there it is hanging from his beak.
Yes, it's quite a whopper, and they can swallow them. They're usually head first. Usually it's minnow size or even a frog or a toad, but it did manage to sort of, with a few head jerks apparently, swallow the fish whole. And then had a hugely distended neck afterwards, so very amusing.
And Janice says we've seen cormorants tackling eels on the Thames just a few times, but it's a very special and a great privilege to see.
Yes, look at that. And that's all what I mean about the biodiversity of the habitat, when you have all the different creatures thriving in different habitats. So you won't find a skylark in woodland, for instance, and you will find herons around wetland areas just like that one. So well spotted.
Oh, Carolyn again has sent a video of a very determined bumblebee. I wonder where they live and will take the nectar to.
Oh, right, they're just coming out of hibernation at the moment, so it's probably not taking the nectar anywhere. It's restocking its fuel tanks. It really surprises everybody that they'll hibernate underground. In other words, they go to sleep for the whole winter. I'm quite tempted occasionally, but there's too much to do.
Odette wants to hear the story of your life. Odette lives in Horsham, lovely bit of countryside round there. A special emphasis on how and why you became so keen on turning your farm into a sanctuary for the wildlife.
So it didn't go bankrupt to start with, I suppose, by arable farming on variable soil types. But my interest, the passion, has always been there. But it was stimulated from one day about 25, 26 years ago after a shoot here at the farm. It's even longer than that, actually. It's now 35 years ago. And somebody gave a vote of thanks at the end of the shoot before braces of pheasants were handed out to the beaters, and said something which changed everything. And he said, he was quite an eminent local personality, and said, "Thank you, Chris, for a terrific afternoon's fun." He didn't say sport, and that sunk in, and the result is this.
You took umbrage at that word, fun. That's an incredible story, isn't it? From, it's not 25 years, 35 years.
Yes.
Now, Pat says, we read out Pat's comment briefly earlier, and she's a great fan of Rat, isn't she?
Yes.
And so is Chris from Masham. And Sarah in Cantley says, I was cleaning out my bird box, and inside was this mass of tubes. It was so tightly attached to the box I had to cut it away. It's not waxy like a bee's nest, but more soft and cobwebby. We've seen bees going in there, which I think were buff-tailed bumblebees. Would they have made this?
Well, I looked at it as carefully as I could, and the only thing I could come up was the buff-tailed bumblebees. There we are.
Oh, look, there are some little cells there, aren't
and
there?
the cells underneath, and it does look about the right size. Although it went on later to explain that a hornet had been seen there. That's quite possible, but I think that's what you're looking at. And of course, they all die once you get to the end of summer, apart from the queens, which hibernate over the winter as adults. They're the only ones to survive. And of course, they all need our help. Bumblebees, red-tailed bumblebees as well. And you see them this time of the year, just out of hibernation. Dandelions are brilliant for them.
Jamie and Leslie send an email. You may remember, Chris, some while ago we were bemoaning the fact that a small rookery and a spinney we have had ceased to be used, much to our sadness. You mentioned it's often the situation with new rookeries. Well, despite them coming and looking around each season for the last 5 years or so, this year they've built a total of 4 nests, and we're delighted. I've been watching them and marvelling at how dry old sticks can make such a sturdy structure. They've lined the nests with moss, and now they're sitting.
Yes, and in the background you can hear some rooks cawing away high up in the trees, and just through the trees I can see a nest, and this is a brand new rookery here, started last year with a couple of nests. I think there's 3 or 4 here this year, and they're kind of satellite to the main rookery, which is on just north of us, about half a mile away, almost outside Caister Church. And it's one of those lovely evocative sounds of being in the church, the yard itself, just hearing all the rooks in the background. The two kind of fit together, and so you've got a bit of history with the church and the history of the wildlife as well. I call the wildlife kind of living heritage, and love it. Can you just hear them in the background?
They knew we were talking about them, you see. And just to prove, before we finish, that Rat is integral to this podcast, with all these pieces of paper with the emails on, and we're outside in the breeze, and he's sitting on them as a paperweight.
Absolutely. See, he has got a use after all. I know. It'd be all right. He's looking very, very pleased to be.
He looks like the Sphinx to me.
Sitting next to me. You can call him what you like, but he's just plain Rat.
Well, thank you for all your messages, lovely emails, and for any questions and comments for future episodes, you can send emails off to chris@highashfarm.com. And just before we go, a big thank you to all our donors as well, who make sure this all runs like silk.
Unfortunately, there are costs to it, and Daniel's involved as well. And Daniel and Matthew both put a lot of work into this, and it's my privilege to share what we see and what we talk about each week. We've managed to keep it going for quite a while now, so fingers crossed you're invited back next week.
And if you want to become a donor, then there is the website highashfarm.com/podcast. Just have a look to see how you can help. Yeah. And I'll be along to hopefully come and enjoy the fresh air with you next week.
Excellent. That's a date we hope to keep. So there we are.
Now, can we have our emails back, Rat?
We can, Rat. There's special emails now, probably quite valuable, covered in slightly muddy paw prints. You lovely boy. Yeah, I got a kiss.